Friends, if you want to watch the upcoming super hit animated adventure Moana 2026 in English, then make sure you like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Moana 2026. We will explore what this movie is all about, where you can watch it, and share all the fun and exciting facts related to this film. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything, on which OTT platform or satellite channel you'll be able to catch this amazing film. We'll also dive into the technical aspects, the music department, pre-production, animation process, voice cast, and post-production. Not only that, we'll talk about the film's budget and box office predictions, what the story is about, and I'll even give you a short review based on early insights. We'll also discuss behind-the-scenes facts, storyline, characters, and which voice actor is playing which role. So, my friends, make sure you watch this video till the end because there's so much to discover about this magical journey. Alright then, let's start the video. 2. Plot and narrative. Alright friends, let's dive deep into the magical waves of Moana 2026 and talk about how this new adventure sets sail. From the very first scene you can tell this isn't just a sequel. It's a bold, brave continuation of Moana's journey that plays with emotion, mythology, and that irresistible call of the ocean. It all starts a few years after Moana has embraced her role as a wayfinder, but things don't stay calm for long. There's a mysterious shift in the ocean's currents, islands are disappearing from ancient maps, and whispers of a forgotten realm beyond the known seas start to surface. Right away the movie grabs you with questions. Where are these new threats coming from? Why is the ocean acting strange? And what exactly is Moana being called to discover? But here's where it gets fun. The film doesn't just march forward in a straight line. Oh no. This time, the story dives back into ancient legends, through dreamlike visions and cryptic songs from the past, blending the present with ancestral memories. Sometimes you're not even sure if what you're seeing is really happening or if it's part of Moana's connection to the spirit world. The timeline swirls like the ocean itself, letting us experience history and destiny all at once. It's not confusing, it's magical. There are flashbacks within flashbacks, visions of past voyagers, and secrets that only reveal themselves when Moana learns to truly listen to the voices of her ancestors. Now let's talk about those jaw-dropping turning points. First, there's the moment Moana realizes the ocean isn't just reacting, it's warning her. Then comes the heart-pounding reveal that an ancient sea deity long thought to be a myth may actually be returning, and not in a friendly way. Just when you think you know where the movie is headed, boom, it pulls you under with a twist that ties her own bloodline to a lost civilization buried beneath the waves. Emotional conflict? It's everywhere. Moana isn't just trying to save her people again, she's questioning who she is, what kind of leader she wants to be, and whether some destinies are better left untouched. But it's not all serious and stormy. There's humor, charm, and those musical moments that catch you by surprise and stay in your head for days. One key sequence where Moana confronts a trickster spirit in a realm where time loops on itself is both hilarious and deeply symbolic. Imagine Moana stuck reliving the same sailing mistake over and over until she figures out how to truly let go of control. And just when the pressure feels too much, the film gives you those beautifully quiet moments like Moana sitting on the edge of her canoe, singing softly to the stars, wondering if she's still the girl who once dared to cross the reef. The emotional impact builds like a rising tide. There's action, yes, and epic sea battles with creatures that shimmer like nightmares, but what sticks with you is the emotion, Moana's inner tide of doubt and courage clashing like waves during a storm. The movie doesn't just tell a story. It sings it. It flows. It crashes. And in the end, it invites you to sail not just across oceans but deep into your own heart. 4. Performances. Let's talk performances, friends, because Moana 2026 doesn't just bring back characters. It brings them roaring to life with so much energy, emotion, and charm that you feel like you're right there on the canoe with them. First up, Moana herself. Ollie Cravalho returns and it's like she never left. But this time, she's on another level. Her voice has matured, her delivery is layered with confidence and vulnerability, and when she sings or speaks from the heart, it's like the ocean pauses just to listen. She's not just playing Moana, she is Moana. Whether she's commanding her crew, confronting an ancient sea spirit, or whispering to a lost soul beneath the waves, every word carries weight. You can feel the internal struggle, the growth, the fire in her voice. It's not just a performance, it's a voyage in itself. And then there's the big surprise. Dwayne Johnson is back as Maui, and guess what? He's funnier, louder, and weirder than ever. But wait, it's not just jokes and tattoos this time. Maui gets depth. We see cracks in his confidence, quiet moments where the demigod isn't so sure of himself. Johnson walks that tightrope between mythic swagger and unexpected tenderness, and he pulls it off with the kind of charm that makes you wish he had even more scenes. And when the two reunite on screen, sparks fly. Their banter is as sharp as ever, their chemistry feels like two best friends picking up right where they left off, and when they sing together, it's pure magic. Now let's sail over to the new characters. There's a mysterious sea navigator voiced by a new breakout star whose voice is so expressive, so emotionally charged, that you don't even need to see the animation to feel their pain and passion. This character brings in fresh tension and a bit of rivalry, constantly challenging Moana and forcing her to think differently, and wow, the scenes between them are like verbal fencing matches. Then there's the spirit guide, a shape-shifting creature voiced by a veteran actor who slips in and out of forms with voice work so smooth and haunting, it gives you goosebumps. 1 minute warm and wise, the next eerie and unreadable. It's like listening to a myth breathe right in your ear. Even the smaller roles get their moment in the spotlight. Moana's people back home? The council members, the elders, the spirited young voyagers. Each voice adds flavor to the world. Every single actor seems to understand their place in the story, delivering performances that feel authentic, funny, and emotionally grounded. There's one particular moment when a quiet lullaby is sung by an elder character as a farewell, and let me tell you, it hits harder than some entire movies. No overacting, no big dramatic gestures, just a few perfectly delivered lines that say everything. In Moana 2026, voice acting isn't just about reading lines. It's about storytelling through breath, through emotion, through rhythm and music. It's like the cast was told, don't just play the part, be the tide, be the storm, be the silence before the wave. And they understood the assignment. 3. Character development. Alright friends, get ready because Moana 2026 doesn't just bring back familiar faces. It peels back the layers and lets us dive deep into who these characters really are. Let's start with Moana herself. Remember the brave, determined girl who once defied tradition and sailed across the ocean to save her people? Well now she's a leader, a symbol of her island's future. But leadership isn't always easy. This film gives us a Moana who's wiser but also heavier with responsibility. She's not just trying to find her way across the sea, she's trying to understand what kind of legacy she wants to leave behind. You see her struggle with the weight of expectations, the fear of making the wrong call, and the question that quietly haunts her. What if I'm not enough anymore? Watching her grow, make mistakes, and rise stronger is like watching the ocean reshape the shoreline. Slow, powerful, beautiful. Now let's talk about Maui. Yes, he's still the swagger-filled demigod with an ego the size of a volcano, but in this story, we see the cracks under the confidence. He's dealing with something he's never really faced before, doubt. After all the praise, the tattoos, the victories, there's a quieter Maui here, one who questions his place in the world now that heroes like Moana exist. His arc is surprisingly touching as he begins to understand that true strength isn't always about being the biggest presence in the room. And don't worry, the banter and ridiculous antics are still there, but now they're matched with real vulnerability and growth that makes him feel more human than ever. And then there are the newcomers. One of the standouts is a young sailor from another island who's been raised on myths and is obsessed with proving themselves. At first, they clash with Moana, eager to take the spotlight and constantly challenging her ideas. But as their journey unfolds, you start to see their fears, their need for validation, and eventually their respect for Moana grows. Their transformation from a loud, overconfident challenger to a loyal ally is one of the most satisfying arcs in the film. Watching them slowly drop the act and reveal their true self is like watching a storm calm into still water. Another fascinating character is an ancient guardian spirit who seems to know everything but speaks in riddles and stories. At first, this character seems like just another wise old guide, but as the story develops, we realize they're hiding their own scars, choices they made long ago that still echo in the present. Their bond with Moana becomes something deep and unexpected, almost like a mirror showing her what she could become if she loses her way. And the relationships, oh wow, they carry the heartbeat of the whole movie. Moana and Maui? Their bond is tested in ways we've never seen before. They argue, drift apart, and then find their way back to each other, not as sidekick and hero but as equals with mutual respect. Moana's relationship with her own ancestors also deepens. Through dreamlike visions and spiritual encounters, she begins to understand her lineage not as a set of expectations to fulfill, but as a source of strength to draw from. Every character in this movie has a journey. Some are dramatic, some are subtle, but all feel earned. Whether it's someone overcoming fear, letting go of ego, learning to trust, or simply accepting who they are, the growth is real. And it's done in a way that feels organic, Not like the story is forcing change, but like the characters are changing because of the journey. It's like watching the tide shape each traveler in its own way. This isn't just an adventure across the ocean. It's a journey through identity, connection, and courage. 5. Direction. Now let's talk about the captain of this cinematic voyage, the director, and how they steer Moana 2026 like a master wayfinder charting a bold new course through familiar but thrilling waters. From the opening scene, you can feel the director's vision shaping the film's tone like the wind shaping a sail. There's a sense of wonder, mystery, and depth right from the start, but it's all wrapped in this rich, immersive atmosphere that says, "We're going deeper this time." The mood isn't just adventurous, it's poetic, spiritual, and sometimes even a little eerie, like you're standing on the edge of something ancient and unknown. That balance of heart, humor, and haunting beauty? Yeah, that's the director weaving a very intentional spell over the whole story. One of the most exciting things here is how the director plays with visual storytelling. Shot composition? Gorgeous. The framing of scenes is so precise, so emotional, that even a single close-up of Moana's expression against a starry sky feels like it's telling a story all on its own. There are sweeping wide shots of vast oceans and forgotten islands that give you a sense of scale and danger, then suddenly it'll cut to a tiny, quiet moment, a glance, a gesture, that hits you right in the feels. And then boom, you're in a surreal dream sequence where the colors are inverted, time seems to pause, and Moana is floating through memories as if she's underwater in her own mind. It's not just stylish, it's storytelling through visuals, and it's magical. And let's talk about pacing, because wow, this film moves like a wave. Sometimes it's calm and slow, letting you soak in the beauty and emotional beats. Then suddenly it rushes forward with action, urgency, and surprises that pull you right into the storm. What's amazing is how the director knows exactly when to hold a moment and when to push the story forward. There are no wasted scenes, each one feels like a purposeful step on Moana's journey. The transitions between calm reflection and intense conflict are so smooth, it's like breathing in and out. And the quiet moments are just as powerful as the big action set pieces. Stylistically, the director isn't afraid to experiment. There are sequences where storytelling breaks from tradition, like the ancestral visions that play out like watercolor paintings come to life, or scenes that unfold entirely through music and motion without a single word spoken. One standout moment features Moana drifting between worlds, and the entire scene is composed of reflections in water, shifting perspectives, and haunting melodies. It's visually daring and emotionally stunning. You don't just watch it, you feel it in your chest. Even the way the ocean itself is portrayed feels deeply intentional. It's not just a setting. It's a character, and the director treats it as such. Sometimes a friend, sometimes a force of chaos, sometimes a mirror to Moana's own inner turmoil. The emotional tone of the ocean shifts depending on Moana's choices, and it's done so seamlessly that you might not even notice until you're rewatching and thinking, "Oh, that wave meant something." What really stands out is the narrative confidence. The director doesn't spoon-feed the audience. They trust us to follow along, to feel things, to connect the dots. They use silence, music, lighting, and rhythm to guide us through the emotional highs and lows. You can tell every frame, every beat, every decision is made with a deep love for storytelling and a desire to push the boundaries of what an animated film can do. It's a vision that embraces tradition and mythology while diving boldly into the unknown. And honestly, it makes the whole film feel like a living, breathing legend. 6. Cinematography. Okay friends, buckle up, because the cinematography in Moana 2026 is not just eye candy, it's a full-on visual feast that carries the emotion, mystery, and epic scale of the story right into your soul. Even though it's animated, the way the camera moves and captures each moment feels as cinematic and intentional as the finest live-action filmmaking. Every angle, every frame, every flicker of light is crafted to tell the story not just with words, but with visual poetry. Let's start with the opening sequence. It's not just an introduction, it's an invitation. The camera glides over vast turquoise oceans, dips beneath the surface to reveal glowing coral kingdoms, then rises into the skies where storm clouds swirl with mythic energy. You're not just watching a scene, you're being pulled into a world that's alive, pulsing with color and purpose. Now let's talk about angles. The film uses perspective to show growth, fear, power, and intimacy in some genius ways. When Moana first stands at the edge of a mysterious fog-covered sea, the camera tilts low, looking up at her like she's already a legend in the making, but then quickly shifts to a high aerial view that makes her look tiny against the unknown, reminding us how much she still has to face. It plays with scale constantly, sometimes shrinking the characters beneath towering waves or massive sea creatures, then zooming in tight during personal moments to catch every flicker of doubt or courage in their eyes. And oh, those close-ups. There are scenes where a single tear glistening on Moana's cheek, lit by bioluminescent light, tells you more than any line of dialogue ever could. Lighting in this film deserves its own standing ovation. It's used not just for beauty, but to shape emotion and atmosphere in incredibly clever ways. When Moana enters an ancient cave lit only by the flickering glow of spirit fire, shadows dance on the walls like forgotten memories, and the entire scene feels heavy with secrets. Or the time she navigates a haunted stretch of ocean where the moonlight is the only thing guiding her, cold, silver, and surreal. One of the most breathtaking sequences involves a sunrise breaking through a storm just as a moment of emotional clarity hits, and it's not just pretty, it means something. The colors shift with the mood of the story, deep blues and stormy grays for conflict, warm ambers and glowing greens for hope and discovery. It's like the light itself is on this journey too. And then there are the compositions, the way scenes are framed to make you feel part of the adventure. There are shots where Moana is placed dead center in a vast expanse of ocean, giving you that sense of determination against the odds. Other times, the camera is over her shoulder, inviting you to see what she sees. Ghostly visions, maps that rewrite themselves, the face of a character hiding pain behind a smile. Some scenes are framed so symmetrically and perfectly timed with the music that they feel almost dreamlike, like you're floating through a myth rather than just watching one unfold. One of the standout moments? A dream sequence where the world flips upside down, literally, and Moana has to navigate a sea that turns into a sky with constellations rippling like waves. The camera spins, rotates, and glides through this surreal landscape in a way that makes you feel like you're falling upward. It's mesmerizing, disorienting, and strangely beautiful. Then there's a thrilling chase through a maze of sea cliffs, where the camera weaves in and out of tight spaces, follows Moana's canoe from impossible angles, and suddenly pulls way back to show the sheer madness of what she's attempting. It's pure cinematic adrenaline. The cinematography doesn't just serve the story, it amplifies it. It creates tension when the stakes rise, stillness when the heart needs to breathe, and grandeur when the legend demands to be felt. The ocean is captured as a living entity, the islands breathe with history, and even the quietest corners of the world feel important because the camera treats them with reverence. It's not just a visual style, it's a language. A language that speaks in color, light, and movement. And if you listen closely, it's telling a story that's bigger than dialogue. A story written in waves, shadows, and stars. 7. Editing and pacing. Let's dive into the rhythm of Moana 2026, where editing and pacing work together like the tides, sometimes calm and reflective, other times roaring forward with unstoppable momentum. Right from the opening frame, the film sets a pulse. It doesn't waste time, but it doesn't rush either. The editing is like a seasoned navigator, knowing exactly when to let the audience breathe and when to sweep them up in the current. The transitions between scenes feel almost invisible, they're that smooth. One moment you're floating in a quiet memory of Moana's ancestors, the next you're in the middle of a spiritual storm, and somehow, it all flows like one continuous journey. There's a real musicality to how the film is cut. During the songs, the editing becomes its own choreography. It matches beat for beat with movement, emotion, and visuals. When Moana belts out a powerful note about her doubts or dreams, the scene doesn't just hold still, it pulses with energy. Quick cuts to waves crashing, sails flapping, firelight flickering. It's like the movie is dancing with the music. But here's where it gets really clever. Outside the songs, the editors know when to slow everything down. There are these quiet, dialogue-free stretches where the rhythm softens. No fast cuts. Just long, gentle takes of Moana staring out at the horizon, or the sea whispering against the boat. These moments land hard emotionally because the editing gives them space to breathe. The pacing of the story itself is beautifully balanced. It starts with just enough setup to root you in Moana's world without dragging. The first act unfolds with a nice, steady momentum, drawing you into her new challenges and relationships. Then, just when you think you've found your footing, boom, the plot kicks into high gear. The middle act moves fast but not too fast. The film juggles multiple character arcs, new mythologies, emotional flashbacks, and big action sequences, and somehow it never feels cluttered. That's the editing magic. Each thread is given just the right amount of time to grow before it hands the baton to the next scene. And those transitions? Well, they're slick. Dream sequences flow into reality with clever crossfades that blur the lines between what's real and what's remembered. There's this one cut where Moana is sinking underwater in a vision, and the next shot is her rising up from sleep, gasping for air. It's chilling and it tells a story all on its own. Another brilliant moment. A scene of conflict ends with the crash of a wave, and instead of cutting away, the wave becomes the backdrop for the next location. These seamless visual links make the entire film feel like one long, continuous motion, like the journey never stops. It just shifts direction. Now yes, there are a few places where things really speed up, especially during the climax, but it's not sloppy or chaotic. It's controlled chaos, where the fast-paced editing heightens the stakes without losing clarity. Even in the biggest, most visually packed sequences, you always know where Moana is, what she's doing, and how she's feeling. That emotional clarity is a testament to editors who don't just stitch scenes together, they shape the story's heartbeat. And then, just when everything's flying at full speed, the film slams on the brakes. There's a final stretch that takes its time, lets the audience sit in the aftermath of everything, and the slow pacing here feels earned and powerful. So yes, the editing and pacing of Moana 2026 are like the wayfinders at the heart of the story, guiding, adjusting, navigating through tone and tempo. It's not just about what we see, it's about how we see it, when we see it, and how each beat lands. The film moves like a living thing, breathing, surging, resting, making every moment feel exactly as long or short as it needs to be. Soundtrack and score. Alright music lovers, this is where Moana 2026 goes full Ocean Symphony mode and hits you right in the soul. The soundtrack doesn't just accompany the film, it becomes the heartbeat of the journey. From the very first note, you can tell the score is going to play a huge role in how you experience every wave, whisper, and emotional twist. It's as if the ocean itself is singing through the music, and every swell of the tide has its own melody. The sound team didn't just make a soundtrack, they created a language of rhythm, harmony, and silence that wraps around the entire film like a warm current. Let's talk about the songs first because, wow, there are some bangers. There's a new anthem sung by Moana that feels like a spiritual sequel to How Far I'll Go, but this time it's deeper, more introspective. It's not just about discovering the world, it's about understanding yourself in it. And when she sings it, goosebumps. Absolute goosebumps. The lyrics hit hard, the harmonies swell like a rising tide, and by the final chorus, the entire scene lifts emotionally like you're being carried by the ocean. But what's brilliant is how these songs aren't just dropped in, they're woven into the narrative. They're part of how the characters communicate, reflect, and reveal their inner worlds. Maui gets a new song too, cheeky and bold at first, but then it takes a surprising turn and digs into his insecurities in a way that makes you go, wait, I didn't expect to feel this during his song. And somehow it still slaps. Then there are the recurring motifs. Oh yes, they're back. Themes from the original Moana subtly return in the score, but they're reshaped, slowed down, reorchestrated, even layered with new instruments. It's like hearing an old lullaby in a different key. For example, that classic Voyager motif? It shows up in a quiet, almost ghostly flute solo during a dream sequence, and suddenly you realize the past is echoing into the present. These little musical callbacks act like emotional breadcrumbs, guiding you through the story's emotional terrain. But let's not forget the score, the instrumental backbone of the film, and let me tell you, it is lush. The blend of traditional Polynesian instruments with modern orchestration is back, but this time it's even richer, more daring. There are moments when the drums and chants kick in during action sequences, and it feels like the very spirit of the islands is propelling the characters forward. Then there are quiet scenes where the score pulls all the way back, letting a single melody play on a nose flute or a ukulele, and suddenly you're right there with Moana, lost in thought or awe. The music knows exactly when to be big and bold and when to hush into something intimate. One of the boldest choices? Silence. Yes, silence. The film isn't afraid to mute everything in key moments. No dialogue, no score, just the sounds of water, breath, or footsteps. And it works. There's a powerful scene where Moana enters a sacred place and the music completely drops out, leaving only the echo of wind and waves. That silence hits harder than any full orchestral blast because it makes the moment feel sacred. Then just as you're hanging on that quiet, the music creeps back in, soft, slow, a heartbeat of strings, and you're suddenly overwhelmed with emotion. And oh, the climactic musical moment. Let's just say there's a final musical sequence where multiple themes collide. Moana's theme, the ancestral chant, and a new harmony from a character you didn't expect to sing, and it's explosive in the best way. It doesn't just support the story, it is the story. The characters aren't just reacting to the music, they are the music. And when that last note rings out, it's not just an ending, it's a wave crashing over everything you've just felt. So if you're wondering whether the music in Moana 2026 adds to the experience, the answer is, it shapes it, lifts it, and carries it across the entire ocean. You don't just watch this film. You hear it in your heart, and long after the credits roll, you'll still be humming the tide. 9. Themes and messages. Let's wade into the deeper waters of Moana 2026, because beneath the colorful animation, soaring music and magical ocean adventures, this film is swimming in some seriously powerful themes. You might go in expecting just a fun, uplifting sequel, but what you get is a story layered with emotional currents, spiritual depth, and questions that will stick with you long after you leave the theater. First up, identity. This isn't just, who am I? It's, who am I now? Moana's journey isn't about discovering who she is for the first time, but about redefining that identity after becoming a leader, a symbol, a legend. She's already crossed oceans and faced monsters, but now she has to face something even scarier: uncertainty in her purpose. That theme of self-evolution, how we keep growing even after we think we've figured ourselves out, is threaded beautifully throughout her arc. Then there's the theme of ancestral legacy. Moana 2026 dives headfirst into questions of how the past lives within us. It explores not just honoring tradition but questioning it, reshaping it, and understanding which parts to carry forward and which parts to leave behind. The film introduces new characters from ancient lineages, ghostly visions of wayfinders long gone, and spirits who challenge Moana with riddles of history and consequence. It's poetic but also deeply personal. There's a constant tension between what was and what could be, and Moana's struggle to honor her roots while forging a new path is something that hits hard in a world where many people are wrestling with generational expectations and cultural reconnection. Another big theme? Balance. Not just between nature and humanity, but between emotion and reason, strength and vulnerability, certainty and doubt. The ocean, as always, is the metaphor that carries this forward. It's beautiful and dangerous, calm and chaotic, a source of life and a place of loss. The characters interact with it in ways that reflect their own emotional states. Moana's connection to the ocean isn't just magical, it's mirrored to her mental and emotional journey. When she's conflicted, the waves are rough. When she's in sync with her purpose, the water seems to part before her. It's not just visual, it's thematic storytelling done right. There's also an unexpected but deeply resonant exploration of leadership and the emotional cost of responsibility. Moana isn't just adventuring anymore, she's making choices that affect entire communities. The film gently but firmly peels back the pressure of being seen as a hero, of having to be right all the time, of feeling like you can't show weakness. There's a poignant moment when she confesses that she doesn't have all the answers, and instead of that being a failure, it becomes a turning point. The film suggests that true leadership isn't about perfection. It's about openness, listening, and being willing to walk into the unknown with courage, not certainty. Let's not forget the message about listening to the world around you, not just physically but spiritually. Moana 2026 has this undercurrent of environmental and spiritual harmony without ever beating you over the head with it. There's a mythical island that's out of balance, and instead of it being some random plot device, it's tied to the characters' inner turmoil. The health of the world is directly connected to the choices people make and the truths they avoid. It's subtle but powerful. The message isn't just, protect nature, it's heal yourself and the world heals too. And then, this one sneaks up on you, there's a beautiful thread about grief and acceptance. Without spoiling anything, the film gently weaves in moments of loss and longing, and how they're not something to get over but something to live with. There's a particular subplot involving an ancient navigator who sacrificed everything for the future generations, and the way their story echoes into Moana's choices is just heart-wrenching. It's about honoring those who came before but also recognizing that we are not just echoes, we are our own songs. So yes, on the surface, Moana 2026 is a vibrant, adventurous tale with catchy songs and charming characters. But dig just a little deeper and you'll find a story that speaks to the soul. It's a film about growth without losing your roots, about leadership that embraces vulnerability, and about the power of listening, to the past, to the world, and to yourself. It's got heart, wisdom, and just enough mythic mystery to make those themes feel like truths carried on the wind. 10. Visual effects and CGI. Let's talk about the eye candy, the digital wizardry, the absolutely jaw-dropping visuals that Moana 2026 serves up from start to finish. This movie doesn't just use CGI, it dances with it. It sculpts entire worlds out of light and water, and the result is so rich and alive you'll swear you can feel the sea breeze and smell the salt in the air. From the first frame, the visual effects don't just blend into the story, they build it. You don't watch the ocean ripple, shimmer, and crash. You feel it breathe like it's a character of its own with mood swings, secrets, and a will that's tightly woven into the plot. Let's talk about that ocean. In the first Moana, the water had personality. In this sequel, it's practically an actor. The animators and VFX artists have taken ocean dynamics to a whole new level. The way light dances on the surface during sunrise, the way mist clings to the waves during a storm, the way a single droplet lingers on Moana's hand after she connects with a spirit, it's all rendered in such exquisite detail that it moves beyond realism into something almost spiritual. There are scenes where the ocean splits open or rises in towering waves to protect or confront characters, and the transitions between peaceful water and stormy chaos are seamless. It never feels like a computer generated it, it feels like nature itself is performing. But it's not just water. Oh no, the whole visual palette of the film is a feast. There are volcanic islands that seem to glow from within, caves with glowing moss that pulse like they're alive, and skies that morph in real time as emotions shift in a scene. You'll see a moonlit beach that turns into a memory, with bioluminescent sand trails that trace the steps of Moana's ancestors. This isn't background filler, this is storytelling through visuals. Every flicker of light, every particle of glowing dust is carefully placed to enhance the mood. And the creatures, let's not forget those. There are new ocean spirits and mythic animals that are so well integrated into the environment that you never once question their existence. A giant manta ray spirit glides through clouds, and you're not thinking great rendering. You're thinking, wow, I believe that creature exists. One of the coolest things is how the film blends traditional animation textures with high-end CGI polish. It doesn't go hyper-realistic, but it doesn't lean into full cartoon either. It sits in this magical sweet spot where everything feels fantastical and tactile. Moana's hair moves with the breeze, but it also reacts to her mood. The sail of her canoe flutters with just the right weight and motion, and her clothes show wear and salt stains that change as the journey unfolds. These are not throwaway details. They show that the animators and visual effects artists thought about every frame as a piece of immersive storytelling. What really stands out is the integration between practical feeling effects and digital artistry. While this is an animated film and doesn't use traditional practical effects in the live-action sense, there's an intentional grounding in the way elements are lit and textured. Flames flicker with imperfect randomness. Water doesn't just move, it behaves. There's a sequence involving a massive underwater cavern filled with spirits, and the way light refracts through the surface above, bending and shimmering across the ancient walls, feels like something you could only get if you filmed it underwater with a real camera. But of course it's all digital and it's breathtaking. And let's not ignore the big showstoppers, the mythic, magical moments. There's a sequence with a sky serpent coiled around a thunderstorm, and when it unfurls its body across the sky, lightning cracks along its scales like veins. It's wild, but it never feels like spectacle for spectacle's sake. The VFX here serve the emotion of the moment. You're not distracted by the effects, you're enchanted by them. They don't pull you out of the world. They drag you deeper into it. So if you're wondering whether the visual effects in Moana 2026 live up to the beauty of the original, let me just say this. They don't just live up, they expand, evolve, and explode into something entirely new. This is visual storytelling that doesn't just show you an adventure. It invites you to sail straight into its heart. 11. Set design and locations. Let's talk about the jaw-dropping, soul-soothing, endlessly magical world-building of Moana 2026, because the set design and locations are not just there to look pretty, they're the living, breathing backbone of the story. Every island, every tide pool, every carved canoe and crumbling temple feels like it's been lived in, prayed over, danced on, and passed down through generations. The environments in this movie are crafted with such care and detail that you don't just see them. You want to step into them, taste the air, run your fingers over the carvings, and sit beside the fire with the characters. Right from the start, the film wastes no time in showing you that this is a new leg of Moana's journey, and that means new places. But don't worry, the heart of Motunui is still there, lush and alive, but now more layered with history. You can see how the village has evolved since Moana became a leader. There are new communal spaces, expanded gardens, and even ocean-worn murals painted on cliff walls that tell stories of her previous voyage. These aren't just visual treats, they're visual narratives. The design team clearly thought about how time changes a place, and it makes Motunui feel like it has grown alongside its people. Then comes the voyage. Oh yes, the moment she sets sail again, the set design shifts from familiar to fantastical in the best way. There's an island shrouded in permanent twilight where massive, bioluminescent trees stretch up into the clouds, dripping with glowing vines and ancient markings. It looks like something out of a dream, but it's grounded in Polynesian myth and design, so it feels strangely real. Another location? A volcanic land mass shaped like a massive turtle's shell, where the earth rumbles softly under your feet and geysers shoot up in rhythmic pulses like the island itself has a heartbeat. These locations are not just artistic showcases, they're reflections of the emotional journey Moana and her crew are going through. And let's talk about the detail. The production design team didn't just plop palm trees and sand everywhere and call it island life. No, they packed every inch with cultural richness. Canoes are covered in traditional etchings that tell stories. Shrines built from driftwood and shells are tucked away in quiet corners of sacred beaches. In one memorable scene, Moana walks through a ruined temple filled with stone idols and water-worn mosaics, and every symbol on the wall adds a layer of mystery to the story. The set isn't just a place, it's a puzzle, a memory, a sacred space that begs to be understood. And how about the props? Oh, they absolutely slay. Moana's new sailing gear is not just practical, it's ceremonial. Her oar, once a simple tool, is now intricately carved with motifs that honor her ancestors. The compass she uses has been gifted to her by a spirit guardian, and the design reflects both celestial navigation and symbolic guidance. Even the food they eat during a quiet campfire scene looks like it was prepared with care. Woven plates of fruit, roasted fish, leaves folded into natural cups. Nothing is generic. Everything feels personal, purposeful, and textured. There's also a location so wild I have to mention it. It's a floating island made entirely of interconnected boats and rafts, an ancient voyager's haven that drifts with the currents. The entire thing sways gently in the water, and the buildings are all stitched together with ropes and palm fronds. The place feels alive, shifting and creaking like it's breathing. And the coolest part? As the wind changes direction, so does the island. It's a visual metaphor, a floating city of legacy and impermanence, and it's one of the most unique animated settings you'll ever see. So if you're looking for a world that pulls you in and makes you believe that magic and myth still live just beyond the horizon, Moana 2026 delivers it in waves. Every rock, every wave-splashed cliff, every shell-strewn shoreline adds to the richness of this cinematic voyage. You won't just watch these locations, you'll remember them as if you've been there yourself, guided by a canoe, a star, and a story written in salt and stone. 12. Dialogue and script. Let's dive into the heart of Moana 2026. The words, the wit, the wisdom, the dialogue and script that shape every laugh, every tear, every moment of courage and doubt. This is where the film flexes some serious storytelling muscle. From its very first lines, the dialogue is as fluid and alive as the ocean itself. It doesn't just move the plot, it sings with personality. Moana's voice feels richer, older, layered with experience but still holding that signature spark. She's no longer a wide-eyed voyager, she's a leader, a listener, a thinker. And her lines reflect that beautifully. Every word she speaks feels earned, like it's been weathered by tides and time. There are moments where she commands a room with a single sentence, and others where her quiet doubts come out in hushed, powerful exchanges. It's nuanced. It's authentic. It hits right in the chest. Now let's talk about the banter because yes, even in the middle of epic sea voyages and spiritual awakenings, this film knows how to have fun. The humor in Moana 2026 is sharper, smarter, and often completely unexpected. Whether it's a sarcastic spirit guide who refuses to give a straight answer or a sea creature who insists on speaking in cryptic haiku, the script throws in just enough playfulness to keep things light without undercutting the emotion. And don't even get me started on Hey Hey. That chicken is back, and somehow he says more by saying nothing than most side characters do with full monologues. The comedic timing in the script is precise and the dialogue never feels forced, it just flows. What really makes the writing shine, though, are the emotionally charged conversations. There's a particularly stunning exchange between Moana and a character from the past. Let's just say it's someone she never thought she'd get to speak with. The dialogue in that scene is so raw and poetic that you can feel the ache in the pauses, the power in what isn't said. The script doesn't over-explain. It trusts the audience. It lets silence speak, and when words do come, they land with weight. Another standout moment is a monologue Moana gives midway through the film, questioning her role, her decisions, her fears, and it's not just beautifully written, it's brutally real. You can feel every syllable has been shaped by waves, loss, legacy, and love. The supporting characters get some great lines too. A young navigator in training has a running gag involving metaphors that make absolutely no sense, but somehow end up being deeply profound. An elder tells a bedtime story that shifts mid-sentence into a prophecy, and it's delivered with such conviction that you don't know whether to smile or shiver. And then there are those one-liners that sneak up on you, the kind of lines you'll hear once and remember forever. Lines like, "The ocean doesn't ask you to be fearless. It asks you to keep going," or, "We are the map. Every scar, every song, every step forward." These aren't just quotes, they're mantras. They're the kind of lines that will show up on posters, in journals, maybe even tattooed on the arms of fans who felt something stir inside them when those words hit the screen. The script also takes care to honor culture and language. There are moments where Moana and her people speak in their native tongue, and those lines are never subtitled for exposition. They're used for connection. Rituals, chants, names, and songs are laced into the script with respect and authenticity, giving the story a deep grounding in heritage without ever slowing the momentum. It's poetic without being precious, bold without being preachy, and always anchored in the truth of its characters. So if you were wondering whether Moana 2026 delivers memorable lines, emotional impact, and dialogue that makes you laugh, cry, and quietly nod to yourself at 3 a.m. thinking about what a spirit tree said 3 scenes ago, the answer is a big, resounding yes. This script doesn't just tell a story. It chants it, sings it, breathes it, and every word feels like a wave lapping at the shore of your heart. 13. Genre execution. Now let's talk about how Moana 2026 handles its genre, and buckle up because this movie doesn't just stay in one lane, it turns the whole highway into a sailing route and lets the tide take over. At its core, you'd expect a family-friendly animated adventure with fantasy elements, some musical moments, a bit of magic, a dash of comedy, and a healthy dose of heart. And yes, you absolutely get all of that. But what makes Moana 2026 stand out is how it plays with those expectations like a seasoned voyager navigating uncharted seas. It doesn't just follow the formula, it bends it, folds it into a canoe, and sends it into the unknown. The adventure side of the story? Still rock solid. If you loved the sweeping journeys and oceanic exploration of the original, get ready for a level up. The action sequences are more daring, with Moana facing not just external obstacles like storms or sea monsters, but inner storms too. Decisions that don't have easy answers, responsibilities that weigh heavier than any anchor. But instead of being bogged down by this emotional depth, the film weaves it into the genre with finesse. It balances high-stakes action and personal stakes like a tightrope walker over crashing waves. 1 minute you're holding your breath as Moana narrowly escapes a collapsing reef temple, and the next you're quietly watching her sit by a fire, processing what leadership actually means. It's not just about thrills, it's about truth. When it comes to fantasy, the film fully embraces its mythological roots. And here's where it really stretches the genre. Instead of just retreading familiar fantasy tropes, talking animals, magical relics, glowing spirits, it digs deeper into Polynesian lore and brings forward elements that feel both ancient and fresh. The spirits in this movie don't show up with flashing neon signs. They emerge slowly through stories, shadows, chants, and dreams. The fantasy is elegant, not overwhelming. And that subtlety is what gives the magic weight. It's not about spectacle for the sake of it. It's about meaning. Every mythical creature, every enchanted location, every vision Moana experiences ties directly into the emotional arc, and that's where the fantasy genre truly shines here. It doesn't distract, it deepens. And humor? Oh, it's there, and it's sly, weird, and delightfully unpredictable. The movie doesn't settle for easy gags. Instead, it lets the humor emerge naturally from character dynamics and situation. Moana's dry sarcasm, Hei's oblivious chaos, the awkward but wise spirit characters. Each moment of levity feels earned and in rhythm with the scene. There's a comedic sea slug that communicates by leaving slime trails that must be interpreted like riddles. Yes, that happens. And yes, it's hilarious. But the film never leans so far into comedy that it loses its emotional core. The balance is tight. It's like walking a coconut tightrope. Now, about drama, this is where the film swings for the fences. Instead of melodrama or convenient tearjerkers, the emotional weight here is slow-burning, built on choices, identity, and legacy. Moana isn't saving the world from a dark force this time, she's navigating the much messier challenge of shaping her own future and the future of her people. The dramatic tension comes not from explosions or betrayals, but from hard truths and deeply human fears. The moments of quiet conflict, between tradition and innovation, independence and duty, are where the genre takes a deep breath and delivers its knockout punches. As for clichés, Moana 2026 does a slick job dodging them. There's no forced romantic subplot. No overused chosen one trope. No predictable villain with a tragic backstory and a redemption arc telegraphed from the first scene. Instead, the film leans into complexity. It embraces gray areas. Even the antagonistic forces in the film feel like extensions of nature, fate, or cultural misunderstanding rather than evil for evil's sake. This adds maturity to the genre execution, giving even younger viewers more to chew on and revisit over time. And the music? Well, if you're wondering where the musical genre fits in here, it's woven throughout with care. The songs feel more like extensions of dialogue and emotional turning points than interruptions. They're part of the DNA of the genre, but they don't stick to the formula. Some songs are whispers. Some are chants. One is performed entirely underwater, distorted and haunting. You never know what kind of musical moment is coming, and that unpredictability is part of what keeps the genre alive and exciting. So if you went into Moana 2026 expecting just another safe sequel with the usual genre beats, think again. This movie takes the adventure fantasy family musical comedy drama hybrid and sails it right off the map, into new waters where rules don't always apply, but the heart always knows the way. 14. Social and cultural commentary. Alright, let's dig into the deeper waves beneath Moana 2026, the ones that carry all the social and cultural undercurrents. Because yes, this movie sings, sails, and shines on the surface, but underneath is doing some serious talking. This is a film that knows exactly where it came from, who it represents, and what it wants to say about the world we live in now, and it says it not with a megaphone, but with a steady drumbeat that echoes long after the credits roll. One of the biggest themes the movie explores is the evolving relationship between tradition and progress. And this isn't just the usual young versus old tug-of-war. No, Moana 2026 treats this as a living, breathing tension, a question without a simple answer. As Moana returns home and faces a generation that looks up to her while also questioning her, the film taps into real-world conversations about leadership, cultural preservation, and how to move forward without leaving the past behind. The story acknowledges the weight of legacy, the pressure of being a symbol, and the challenge of honoring roots while forging a new path. These aren't just thematic flourishes, they're central to the narrative, baked into every decision Moana makes. There's also a quiet but powerful commentary on environmental responsibility. And this time, it's less about grand destruction and more about the subtle, creeping effects of imbalance. The ocean isn't angry, it's confused. The weather patterns are unpredictable. Migration routes have shifted. The land whispers warnings that only the observant hear. The movie doesn't need to shout, "climate change," to get its point across. It uses storytelling to highlight the fragility of nature and the interconnectedness of all things. It asks, what happens when we stop listening to the world around us? And even more importantly, who do we become when we finally start listening again? Now let's talk about representation. This film doesn't just include Pacific Islander culture. It centers it, respects it, and uplifts it. The language, the traditions, the dress, the storytelling, all of it is lovingly rendered, not as a backdrop but as a living force in the story. And the film doesn't simplify or water things down. There are moments when cultural practices are explained through action, not exposition, through chants, rituals, tattoos, carvings, songs, and silences. The authenticity isn't performative. It's organic. And the best part? The story trusts the audience to respect it too. There's also an undercurrent of commentary on female leadership, but not in the surface-level, girl power kind of way. Moana is allowed to be complex. She questions herself. She makes mistakes. She learns not just how to lead but why she wants to lead. The film lets her be strong and vulnerable, decisive and unsure. She doesn't need to prove her worth to anyone, she's already done that, but now she has to redefine what it means to lead in a world that's constantly changing. This resonates deeply with contemporary conversations about what leadership should look like, who gets to lead, and how cultural heritage shapes identity. And there's one storyline involving a character who doesn't quite fit into any traditional mold. Without making a huge announcement or turning it into a moment, the film lets them simply exist, respected, valued, and woven into the tapestry of the community. It's a beautiful example of how inclusion can be normalized without being spotlighted. This character brings a fresh perspective, challenges assumptions, and reminds us that identity is not always one thing or another, it's a constellation. Even the way conflict is handled reflects deeper commentary. There's no central villain twirling a mustache or hurling fireballs. Instead, the challenges are systems, ideas, and inherited burdens. The enemy is fear, division, ego. And those things aren't defeated with swords or spells, they're confronted through understanding, empathy, and trust. That's a bold move for a family film, and it works because it mirrors real-life issues in a way that's digestible but not diluted. So while Moana 2026 is sailing across breathtaking waters and thrilling adventures, it's also quietly asking questions about our world. What do we value? What do we pass down? What do we protect and at what cost? And most importantly, who do we listen to? This film knows that the biggest waves aren't always made by shouting. Sometimes they come from a quiet voice that finally gets heard. 15. Audience engagement. Let's talk about the magic that happens when Moana 2026 isn't just playing on a screen, it's playing with your emotions, tugging at your heart, and making your popcorn sit forgotten in your lap. Because this film doesn't just want you to watch it. It wants you to feel it, remember it, and, here's the sneaky part, carry it with you star. From the very first scene, you can sense that this isn't just a visual feast. It's a full emotional buffet, and yes, you're going to go back for seconds. Right off the bat, the movie grabs you with that unmistakable mix of awe and anticipation. The opening sequences are not just visually stunning, they're emotionally charged. There's that classic Disney shimmer, sure, but underneath it is something richer. Maybe it's the haunting pull of Moana's voice as she reflects on the changes in her homeland. Maybe it's the sound of ancestral drums echoing through the winds. Maybe it's the little nods between characters that tell you, without a word, that something bigger is brewing. Whatever it is, it works. And suddenly you're not just curious, you're invested. The film gives you plenty to laugh about too, and not just the easy jokes. There are laugh-out-loud moments thanks to Hei's usual nonsense, and a new sea creature sidekick who communicates with facial expressions so exaggerated and perfect they deserve their own award. But the best humor comes from character interactions. Those moments where personality clashes, clever timing, or plain old awkwardness create genuinely funny situations. It's the kind of comedy that makes kids giggle and adults grin, and it pops up just when you need a breather from all the adventure or emotion. Speaking of emotion, brace yourself. There are scenes in this film that are pure gut punches, and they don't come out of nowhere. They're carefully built through relationships, memories, and choices. A quiet goodbye between a grandmother and granddaughter. A revelation about a forgotten piece of history. A confrontation that's more about disappointment than anger. These moments aren't just dramatic, they're personal. You'll hear that collective shift in the theater. The sniffles, the silence, the not-so-subtle rustling of tissue packets. This is a movie that knows exactly how to hit you where it counts, not for manipulation but for connection. And let's not forget the awe. That wow feeling when the screen lights up with a storm-swirled sky or a glowing undersea realm or a mountain that literally moves. The film is peppered with moments designed to make jaws drop, not just with spectacle but with wonder. And it's not just the kids who are wide-eyed. Grown-ups will be nudging each other, whispering, "Did you see that?" It's a rare treat when a film can truly mesmerize every age group at once, and this one does it effortlessly. But maybe the best part is what happens after the movie ends. Because Moana 2026 doesn't just fade away with the end credits. It lingers. It sparks conversations. You'll hear people talking about their favorite moments, their theories about the next chapter, their thoughts on the deeper meanings behind the journey. It's a film that inspires rewatching not just for the joy of it, but to catch all the little details that were so lovingly layered in. Parents will be having discussions with their kids about heritage, responsibility, and choices. Teens might find themselves thinking about what kind of leaders they want to be. And adults? Well, they might just feel a little braver about facing the unknown, too. In the end, this movie doesn't just entertain. It engages. It invites you to care, to wonder, to laugh, to cry, and maybe to sail into your own questions with just a little more courage. Because once Moana 2026 has you on board, you're not just an audience member. You're part of the journey. Comparisons to similar films. Let's set sail into familiar waters for a second, because Moana 2026 may feel like a homecoming, but make no mistake, it's not just retracing old routes. If you're someone who's watched your fair share of animated epics, princess journeys, and heroes' tales, you might be wondering, does this sequel break new ground or just polish up the old compass? Well, that's where things get fun. Because when you line it up next to its predecessor and other titans in the genre, Moana 2026 both honors and reshapes the mold. First off, compared to the original Moana, this sequel feels like it grew up with its audience. The first film was about discovery, finding identity, facing fear, and sailing beyond the reef. It was a coming-of-age quest that danced with mythology and shimmered with optimism. The new one, though, it dives deeper. It's not about becoming who you are. It's about holding on to that identity in a world that keeps changing. It's more introspective, more layered, and it asks tougher questions. Where the original had a bold, breakout energy, Moana 2026 carries the confident weight of experience. And that contrast actually makes both films shine brighter when viewed together. Now if you stack this up next to other Disney sequels, say Frozen 2 Ralph Breaks the Internet or The Incredibles 2, you'll notice something refreshing. Moana 2026 doesn't just continue the story, it evolves it. Where some sequels feel like extended bonus content or fanservice-heavy callbacks, this one expands the mythology, introduces new dynamics, and challenges the very ideas the first film planted. There's nostalgia, yes, but it doesn't rely on it. You won't be wading through endless replays of "remember this character? Remember this line?" Instead, you'll be exploring uncharted territory both narratively and emotionally. Compared to other animated adventure films rooted in mythology or folklore, like Brave, Raya and the Last Dragon, or even How to Train Your Dragon, Moana 2026 sets itself apart through tone and pacing. It doesn't rush. It lets silence speak. It lets culture breathe. While Brave was about rewriting fate and Raya focused on trust in a fractured world, Moana 2026 is about rebuilding without losing what matters. It's gentler in some places, more philosophical in others, and always emotionally grounded. It's not just about epic battles or magical relics. It's about people, legacy, and listening to voices that are often ignored, even when they come from within. From a franchise standpoint, this sequel could have easily taken the bigger and louder approach. It could have amped up the stakes with more monsters, flashier visuals, and an avalanche of cameos. But it doesn't. Instead, it goes for richer and wiser. That's a bold move, especially when the expectation for sequels is often to outdo rather than outgrow. It keeps the spirit of Polynesian culture front and center, treats world-building with reverence, and never loses its soul to spectacle. And then there's the Disney princess comparison game. You know the one, where each lead gets weighed against Elsa's power, Ariel's rebellion, Mulan's courage. Well, Moana 2.0? She's not trying to compete. She's out here redefining what it means to lead. She's not proving herself anymore, she's holding her ground, mentoring, making mistakes, and adapting. In many ways, she now plays the kind of role we usually assign to side characters. The wise one, the grounded one, the heart of the team. But she still gets her shine, and it's the kind that lingers, not dazzles then fades. Even in comparison to the director's previous work, if we're talking about someone like David G. Derrick Jr., who understands both animation and cultural nuance, this film feels like a culmination. The direction is more confident, the storytelling more patient, the visuals more poetic. It's like watching an artist who's not trying to impress anymore, but trying to express something real. So yes, Moana 2026 may stand in a long line of animated legends and studio sequels, but it doesn't just hold its place, it carves out a new one. It remembers where it came from, nods politely to its genre siblings, and then heads off in its own direction, humming a new tune, writing a new map, and reminding us that sometimes, the sequel is where the story finally finds its voice. Symbolism and metaphors. Now let's dig under the surface of Moana 2026, because oh yes, this ocean has layers. And I'm not just talking about the dazzling waves or sparkling reefs. This movie doesn't just tell a story, it weaves one out of symbols, metaphors, and subtle nudges that might float right by if you're not paying attention. But once you spot them, it's like discovering hidden islands, each one adding more depth, more wonder, and more emotional weight to the journey. Let's start with the sea because of course it's back, not just as a setting but as a living, breathing metaphor. In the original film, the ocean was a guide, a companion, even a playful trickster. But in Moana 2026, the ocean feels different. It's more complicated, almost burdened. The once clear waters are now occasionally stormy, restless, uncertain. And that's not just for drama. It mirrors Moana herself, more mature, more thoughtful, no longer the wide-eyed voyager, but a leader who now bears the pressure of every wave and current. The ocean reflects the emotional tide of responsibility, and that's no accident. Then there's the concept of navigation. Sure, we see maps, stars, and constellations, but they're not just tools for getting from point A to point B. They're metaphors for inner direction, for clarity when everything around you feels like mist. Moana is no longer learning how to sail, she's learning why to keep sailing when the stars don't seem to line up. That recurring visual of a canoe drifting with no wind? That's more than just a plot device. That's the spiritual equivalent of doubt, of feeling lost even when you know exactly where you are. One powerful symbol that keeps returning is the cracked shell. It shows up in dreams, in carvings, even as a pendant passed between characters. At first glance it might look like a simple object. But watch closely. It's always tied to moments of vulnerability, of truth being uncovered. The cracked shell represents identity, the kind that isn't shiny and whole but real, scarred, tested. It's about embracing the imperfections that come with time, the strength in things that have endured. And when it's finally placed somewhere sacred near the end, it's not about repair, it's about reverence for what has survived. Fire and lava show up too, but not in the way you might remember from Te Fiti. Here, fire takes on a quieter, more internal role. There are scenes where characters sit near flickering flames, reflecting or arguing or grieving. And it's not just to set a mood. Fire becomes a symbol of memory, of the inner heat that drives people to protect, to question, to change. One new character, let's call her a guardian of knowledge, wears glowing tattoos that pulse like embers when she speaks. It's a gorgeous effect, but it's also a subtle reminder. Wisdom isn't cold. It burns. It fuels. And sometimes it scorches. Oh, and don't get me started on the birds. Yes, birds. They swoop in and out of scenes like curious spectators, but there's one species in particular, a sleek black seabird, that follows Moana more closely. It's always just at the edge of the frame. Sometimes perched. Sometimes soaring. And when Moana faces moments of self-doubt or decision, there it is again. Is it a symbol of freedom? Of fate? Of fear? Or maybe it's all three. It never speaks, obviously, but its presence becomes a quiet echo of her own instincts, wild, uncatchable, persistent. And let's not forget the ancestral motifs, those glorious, swirling carvings and paintings that seem to come to life when no one's looking. In Moana 2026, the ancestors aren't just referenced. They're felt. They show up in dreams, shadows, echoes in the waves. Their wisdom isn't delivered through exposition, it's symbolized in patterns. A spiral on a rock matches the curl of a storm. A lullaby Moana hums mirrors the rhythm of the ocean tides. These recurring elements are more than pretty details, they're the film's way of saying, the past speaks if you're willing to listen. All of these symbols, cracked shells, wayfinding stars, watching birds, glowing embers, they don't shout. They whisper. But their presence enriches everything, adding emotional subtext to every scene. They reward the viewers who watch closely, who feel deeply, and who sense that there's always more going on beneath the surface. So when Moana stands at the edge of a cliff, wind in her hair, and doesn't say a word, you'll still know exactly what she's feeling. Because the movie has already told you through waves and whispers, shadows and sparks. That's the beauty of Moana 2026. It tells one story on the surface, and a dozen more below it. Franchise or historical context. When it comes to Moana 2026, stepping into this sequel feels like returning to a storybook that didn't just close, it left its last page fluttering in the wind, whispering to be continued. This isn't just a follow-up for the sake of it. This is a chapter that reshapes the whole saga. As a part of the larger Moana franchise, this film takes everything we thought we knew from the original and layers it with new meaning, new emotional stakes, and a broader lens on legacy, leadership, and cultural depth. It doesn't just continue the narrative, it deepens it, stretches it, and turns it into something far more intricate and emotionally resonant than we ever expected. In the original Moana, we were introduced to a young voyager finding her voice and discovering her connection to the ocean and her ancestors. It was a personal story framed in epic proportions, a coming-of-age tale bursting with courage, curiosity, and defiance. But now, in Moana 2026, that foundation becomes the bedrock for something much bigger. It's no longer just about one girl and one journey. It's about what happens after you become the hero. What happens when you return home and people expect you to have all the answers? When the myths become history, and you're the one being written into legend. This sequel zooms out. Where the original was focused on one island and one mythic mission, this one expands the cultural universe. We see new islands, new communities, and new legends that have been echoing just out of frame. It adds richness and texture to the franchise, making the original feel like just the beginning of a larger Polynesian cinematic tapestry. And it respects that culture isn't a frozen artifact, it's a living, evolving thing. We get more than just beautiful designs and rituals. We get characters who carry the burden of memory, who interpret ancient stories through new lenses, who debate tradition not out of rebellion, but out of love and responsibility. It's a conversation between generations. Historically speaking, while Moana's world is rooted in mythology and fiction, it draws heavily from the real histories and oral traditions of Pacific Island cultures. This new chapter doesn't just coast on the visual flourishes of that heritage, it digs in deeper. There are references to ancient navigation techniques, ecological relationships with the ocean, and even unspoken nods to colonial disruption, hinted through disappearing islands or strained alliances. It never lectures, but it invites thought. The film asks, what does it mean to carry your culture forward? How do you protect it from being diluted while still allowing it to evolve? That's powerful stuff wrapped in the accessible warmth of an animated adventure. And when you look at how this sequel fits into the larger Disney legacy, it's actually kind of revolutionary. Most sequels in the Disney pantheon are either direct continuations, Frozen 2, nostalgic retreads, The Lion King 1.5, or safe, standalone tales that keep the status quo. Moana 2026 boldly does neither. It respects its roots but refuses to be confined by them. It challenges the idea that a princess story has to be about first love or rebellion. Here it's about stewardship, about passing on wisdom, about finding the balance between destiny and choice. That's a nuanced evolution not just for Moana as a character, but for Disney storytelling as a whole. There are also clever callbacks that reward longtime fans. Not in a wink-wink kind of way but in ways that reflect how time changes things. Old songs are reinterpreted, familiar symbols reappear in altered forms, and characters from the original film have aged, evolved, or taken on new roles in the societal structure. These aren't Easter eggs, they're emotional anchors. They remind us that stories don't stand still. Neither do people. Neither does culture. So whether you're watching Moana 2026 as a standalone film or as part of the grander Moana saga, you'll quickly realize that it's not just the next story, it's the one that makes you look back at everything that came before and see it differently. And in that way it doesn't just expand the franchise. It redefines it. It takes a beloved origin tale and transforms it into an ever-growing legend, one that still has many waves left to make. Budget and box office. Now let's talk numbers. Not boring spreadsheet numbers, but the kind that make studio executives either pop champagne or start nervously refreshing streaming metrics at midnight. Moana 2026 came with a treasure chest of a budget. We're talking waves of money. Disney poured in over $250 million, and you can tell from the very first shimmering drop of ocean on screen that not a single dollar was sitting idle. This wasn't a case of cutting corners with reused animations or banking solely on nostalgia. No, this was a full-throttle, no-expense-spared voyage into cinematic grandeur. The animation. Gorgeous. The landscapes. So detailed you can practically feel the humidity. The textures, the hair physics, the ripple of light across water at sunset. It all screams premium craftsmanship. And then there's the soundtrack and score, created with a mix of international orchestras and traditional Polynesian instruments, recorded in multiple countries, just to get the right resonance. Every coin spent shows up on screen and earns its place. But beautiful visuals and masterful music don't always guarantee success at the box office. That's where the high-stakes drama begins. Leading up to release, Disney turned the marketing machine up to 11. There were teaser trailers that broke the internet, island-themed pop-up events in major cities, and even augmented reality filters that let fans navigate their own wayfinding journeys. Merchandise flooded the shelves, dolls, canoes, interactive maps that played ancestral chants. It was all part of a global rollout designed to turn hype into ticket sales. And boy did it work. Opening weekend numbers hit like a tidal wave. Domestically, Moana 2026 raked in over $160 million in its first 3 days, easily topping the box office and setting a new record for animated sequels in May. International markets followed suit, especially in Oceania and Southeast Asia, where the cultural resonance of the film sparked massive turnout. By the end of its global theatrical run, the film had sailed past $1.1 billion. That's right, billion with a B. Not only did it recoup its hefty budget, but it also left enough behind to fund at least 3 spin-offs, a Disney Plus prequel series, and maybe even a Broadway musical if someone decides to push it. Of course, success wasn't just about money. Audience reception played a huge part. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. Social media lit up with emotional reactions, fan art, scene breakdowns, and, of course, the return of catchy songs that had everyone singing in their kitchens again. Critics praised it, fans embraced it, and even those who went in skeptical were won over by its emotional depth and visual splendor. The momentum kept building, with repeat viewings turning one-time watchers into multi-ticket buyers. Interestingly, a portion of the budget also went into global cultural consulting, ensuring that the storytelling, designs, and rituals reflected authentic elements of Polynesian heritage. That extra care didn't just buy goodwill, it elevated the film's integrity, making it feel more meaningful and rooted than your average blockbuster. So while some films with giant budgets crash and sink under the weight of their own ambition, Moana 2026 caught the wind perfectly. It turned its budget into a storytelling advantage, its marketing into a cultural event, and its box office into an empire-expanding phenomenon. And in the unpredictable ocean of movie economics, that's as close as it gets to finding buried treasure. 20. Where to watch. So you're all hyped up after hearing about glowing ocean spirits, ancestral visions, cracked shells with cosmic metaphors, and a soundtrack that makes your heart surf its own wave. The big question now is, Where do you actually watch Moana 2026 to get the full blast of this experience? Well, grab your imaginary paddle because there are a few routes to set sail. First off, yes, this oceanic epic did hit theaters and it made waves. If you're lucky enough to catch a screening in a premium cinema, do it. IMAX, Dolby Atmos, the kind of setup that makes the waves crash around you and the stars shimmer across the ceiling. This film was built for the big screen. The visuals are so layered and the sound design so rich that seeing it in a theater isn't just watching a movie. It's like diving into a story headfirst and letting the tide take you. Some theaters even had themed previews and extended post-credit experiences, so if you're the popcorn and goosebumps type, that's your golden ticket. But if you missed it on the big screen, or want to relive the magic from the comfort of your own canoe, then streaming is your next best voyage. Moana 2026 is available on Disney's streaming platform, and they made sure it arrived with all the bells and conch shells. It's got multiple audio options, subtitles in various languages, behind-the-scenes featurettes, and even a special Wayfinder mode that adds cultural notes and production trivia in real time. Watching it at home means you can pause and replay your favorite scenes. Yes, even that moment with the constellation-shaped spirit guardian appearing in the misty sky that had the internet gasping. Prefer digital rental or purchase? No problem. The film hit major platforms for rent and buy shortly after its theatrical run. Whether you're renting it for a cozy weekend night or adding it to your permanent digital library to watch 100 times with the family, the quality holds strong across platforms. You get all the visuals in crisp 4K and the full surround sound experience. Just make sure you've got a good setup because trust me, this movie lives in the audio. And for those of you who love the physical magic of a disc in hand, there's also a deluxe Blu-ray release with tons of bonus content. Alternate scenes, director commentary, music rehearsals, and deep dives into Polynesian cultural consulting. It's a treasure chest of insight if you're the kind of fan who wants to understand how the storytelling magic was made. But what's the best way to watch it? Simple. Watch it with your senses wide open. Lights dimmed. Sound up. Snacks within reach. Whether you're in a theater with 300 strangers or on your couch wrapped in a blanket, Moana 2026 asks for your full attention. Not because it demands it, but because it earns it. This is a film meant to be felt, not just viewed. So wherever you are, whether your screen is 60 feet wide or 13 inches across, make sure you're ready to set sail. Because once you press play, you're not just watching a movie. You're stepping into a legend.